Good people of Montrealites, what is up? Me again, Mark, here with another meeting, another discussion of one of my all-time favorite authors. Last time we spoke a bit about Knut Hamsun, the Norwegian writer, and all the good stuff he did, for literature, the influence he had on future writers. The idea of the protagonist, the anti-hero, if you want to call it that, very absurdist, kind of, existential questions that Knut Hamsun was working with. So I thought it would be a good point, a good leading point to our next author, which is this man, Louis Ferdinand Celine. Now, this is one of his best or most well-known works, and this is the other one. So this is Journey to the End of the Night, and this is Death on the Installment Plan. So, Louis Ferdinand Celine, quite a mouthful. So Celine wasn't Knut Hamsun's contemporary in that Celine was only born in 1896, whereas Knut Hamsun was born in 1854, thereabouts. So, there's something like 40 years difference between the two writers. They were obviously writing, they were both alive the same period, so, they were both doing their thing. They're both around at the same time. Strangely enough, much like Hamsun, Celine was also a huge Nazi sympathizer. So much so that he kind of outdid the Nazis. At a certain point, the Nazis told him, "You know what, Celine, you should probably just calm down, just turn it down just a bit with the very, let's just say, very opinionated man." So some background on Celine. He was born, like I said, at the turn of the century, just outside Paris, and he came from, well-to-do, as they said, petit bourgeois family back then. So, family of means, very comfortable. As far as we know, Celine had a fine childhood. Bright young man, all that. And then in 1911, or 1912, thereabouts, he decided to join the French army and enlist in North Africa, in a North African campaign, which then, 1911, 1912, within a few years, he ended up in the First World War. He actually became a sergeant in the French army. He also studied medicine. He was a doctor, and of course, throughout his career, he always wrote. While these two works, Journey to the End of the Night and Death on the Installment Plan, are his two most celebrated works, he has a number of other minor works which are, depending on your perspective, equally good, or at least equal in quality. His style did vary over the years, but he was consistent in his delivery of good prose, of quality fiction, and innovation. Okay, so what makes Celine so memorable, or why did I choose Celine? So Celine was, much like Hamsun, was one of the first to write in this type of style that he did. Celine was one of the first to, use black comedy, as it's been called. Celine was extremely cynical, pessimistic. Just, he detested humanity. He detested human nature. He was a coward. He prided himself on being a coward and a deserter. He really, if Celine is good at one thing, it's pretty much ridiculing and diminishing all the things that most people, find to be hold to be very important. So during Celine's experience in the war, he came very close to death. He saw it all around him. He witnessed it in all its forms of brutality and folly and stupidity and of course Celine was kind of obsessed with death. He was very much preoccupied, and that's that fed into his interest in medicine and becoming a physician. So Celine, he went through the war, and he essentially wrote this account of what it was like. Keep in mind, it was the First World War, and things were different. I mean, you still had horses, you still had muskets and swords, stuff like that. So in a certain way, death was a lot more close, a lot more personal, because you did have men charging at each other across fields, and it wasn't mechanized like it is today, or they weren't even using gas back then, poison gas. So Celine really got to see death close up and personal for an extended period of time, and he essentially in 1939, when Journey to the End of the Night was released, it was released. It was instantly praised within the French circles and literary circles in general. While Celine was at odds with the establishment on account of his religious affiliation, his work was always well received for the most part, and his innovation to humor, to his sense of pessimism, of realism, was very much seen as a novelty and something that was welcomed as an innovation. No other writers before Celine had been so, just so irreverent, so just cynical and contemptuous of everything, of life, of death. And he writes about that at length. He writes about his cowardice, his disdain for those around him, his indifference to pain, to suffering. But at the end of the day, what makes the book so great is that it's one of the funniest books, possibly ever. Obviously that's subjective, but one of the funniest books ever conceived. His sense of that sense of irreverence that he has towards the treatment of everything, even his approach, his stylistic approach, his technical approach to writing, very different. One of the most notable things about it is that he incorporates an ellipsis into almost every sentence. So, in terms of grammar, punctuation, and syntax, he also kind of was doing his own thing and experimenting with different forms and voices and techniques. Always stayed, a constant, true to that Celine tone, that hallmark tone, that irreverent tone. But that's kind of it. Celine, despite the controversy and despite the pessimism, if you want to, the negativity of his work, what can you say when you approach something that, in certain ways, may be off-putting or disagree, something that gets you worked up or frustrating, but at the same time is so completely humorous and funny. Can't help but it's endearing. So, Celine, much like Hampson, and chose all these authors for this reason, but Celine was also immensely influential to subsequent writers, generations of writers, and for example, like even Kurt Vonnegut in Slaughterhouse-Five makes constant references to Celine, and Celine's approach to life, essentially, to the absurdity of life in the face of death, was he referred to it as one's dutiful role in the dance with death. So, in other words, Celine saw death as, life, essentially, as a prolonged dance with death, a comical, nonsensical dance involving life and death. So, like I said, Vonnegut was someone who, it's pretty evident, like, maybe that's kind of how I got onto Celine. Another writer who, praises Celine and speaks of his influences, Charles Bukowski, for instance. And once again, I mean, when you consider his sense of irreverent tone and his realistic kind of, amoral approach to his subjects, you can see that influence. You can definitely see that influence. Now, obviously, Celine's cynical tone, and that's cynical black humor. It's often called gallow humor. Has been influential, the humor aspect of it, but also his actual ability to fitfully describe war. So in that instance, most of the great war books, like if you want to take Catch-22 for instance, or once again Slaughterhouse number 9, Slaughterhouse number 5, Hemingway. So a lot of them did take their cues from Celine in that respect, because once again he's very, very good at what he did, and when it came to describing the absurdity and brutality of war, it was no different in that respect. Celine, published books throughout his life. Like I said, some are more celebrated than others, but he ultimately lived out his days with his family. Much like his early part of his life, he is kind of a very conventional man, beyond his exceptional tendencies to sympathize with the Nazis in his day. He was quite a conventional man, which obviously is not reflected in his literature, which described as just manic and the anything but conventional. So, while his work is many of these paperbacks, you can find them in used bookstores. You could check out The Word in Montreal. That's on Park, I believe, or Milton. Sorry, Milton. That's The Word. It's the best bookstore in Montreal, in my opinion. They usually have, you can pick up Celine paperback editions under $5. You can get either one of Journey or Death on the Installment Plan. Sometimes they have the lesser known, lesser carried ones. But should totally check out Celine. I mean, he's great. What's not to like? You have all the gore, blood, and guts, and also belly aching laughs. I mean, just so funny. Such a unique voice. Such a unique ability to really have such a complete approach of human nature to insert. Do not, as cynical and bleak as Celine is, or at least his subject matter, his approach is not bleak. The voice or the character of Bartholomew, who's the protagonist. It's the story of Bartholomew in Journey to the End of the Night. Bartholomew, despite all his contempt towards everything, and the ridiculous situations that he finds himself in, whether it's having to, essentially be open prey to snipers, or having to deliver a message across in very, very dangerous territory, enemy territory. Despite all these things and all the cruelty and suffering that he encounters, Bartholomew's voice, the protagonist, the voice always maintains its dignity, always maintains its composure. I'm not sure if dignity exists in the Celine world, view of things, but Celine universe, if dignity could possibly exist. But at least Bartholomew, this really, really pointed anti-hero, always maintains his composure, and in a sense, that's where the satire of the work really comes through. It's in that composure, that ability to rationally assess absurd situations and then deliver, very comical critiques and judgments. That's the strength of Celine's work. So if you enjoy laughing at all, if you enjoy great prose and really, there's some really great passages in Celine. I mean, beyond the laughs and beyond the all the other stuff, there is very, very tender moments, very telling moments, moments of honesty, and all that good stuff that does come out and definitely enriches the text and contributes to making it as memorable as it is. So if you think any of those or all of those things appeal to you, or if you already read Celine and think he's as good as I do, I want to hear all about it. As usual, just hit me up in the comments below. Video replies, all of that good stuff. Like, share, subscribe, and till next time, keep reading and be good.